World-class lessons from the real estate industry's top 1%, empowering agents to think bigger and do more to create life by design. Get access to exclusive interviews with top producing real estate professionals. Listen in as we talk about their journey into business, best practices, and lessons learned. Hosted by Kiro Nasrallah and John Scipione.
I mean, one thing that we always say in our office is just action is better than perfection, right?
This is Light It Up with Lighthouse Residential.
Welcome back to another episode of Light It Up Podcast. I'm thrilled to have with us today an absolute legend in the Scottsdale, Arizona market. He ranks amongst the top 20 in the state. He's been in the real estate industry for over 23 years, 12 of which he consistently sold over 100 homes every year. Totaling 2,000 plus transactions in his career, what makes today's guest special is his addiction to growth and his passion to elevate those around him. Welcome, Mr. Jason Penrose.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for coming on. I know you always bring value to us, and the listeners to this will gain a lot of value from you as well.
All right.
In doing a lot of the research and preparation for these questions, I realized that you are a lot older than you look, and you actually look very young because you started in the industry very, very young, no?
Yeah. I got my license in 1999. So I was still in college at that time. And I did it part-time for a few years. I was a transaction coordinator on a team, and then I was a buyer's agent on a team, and then I went out and started my own team in 2007.
In 2007,
Yeah.
Okay. So did you always know you wanted to do real estate as an industry or a career?
Absolutely not. No, I didn't actually want to be in I didn't want to be in sales, actually. It's funny. My parents told me at a very young age, you should be a salesman. And I was like, I don't want to be a salesman. And, I had typical, reservations about salespeople, as most people do. I immediately started thinking about car sales, and I thought, no, I don't want to do that. And so I went to ASU and got a communication degree and left Arizona for a while and became a financial advisor for T. Rowe Price and had all my securities licenses, my 67, 63, 66, did that for a while. And I enjoyed it, but I just couldn't make enough money at it. And then I was at a Barnes & Noble bookstore, and this guy approached me, and he didn't even work there. It was the strangest meeting of my life. And he said, "What are you looking for?" I said, "I'm just looking for a book on how to have my money make me money." He goes, "Well, that's interesting." He goes, "You ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad?" I said, "No, I haven't. I haven't even heard of it." So he looked for it and he handed it to me. He goes, "Yeah, this is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a great book. If you read it, it's going to change your life." And then he pitched me about coming to work for him because he had a small business or something. And I said, "Well, I really like working at T-Row. I'm not looking to switch, but I appreciate the suggestion on the book. I'll read it." And he goes, "All right, man." He goes, "Seriously, if you read the book, it's going to change your life." And he wasn't kidding. I read the book, and I think I got to page 4 on the rat race. I was reading it with my wife, and I thought, oh my God, I was working on my MBA at the University of Colorado. And I thought, I don't want to be in corporate America anymore. And so I went back, came back to Arizona and worked on a real estate team. And that was in 2003. And it was from there that I got the bug, if you will. I started making sales and never looked back.
Yeah. That's incredible.
I didn't realize that. That's a cool story. I mean, I think we've all obviously read the book. And isn't it cool how such a basic book like that, not that it's so basic, but it's really
basic principles.
Basic principles that so many people say that they started with that book.
Yeah. And
it's cool. I think my dad actually gave it to me, but it's cool that you got it from a random guy in the bookstore. I totally thought you were going with that story that you actually worked with him for years and he's been a mentor to you, but no, probably didn't even get his name.
I wouldn't even know who he was if I saw him, but it was like one of those, I guess you call it divine appointment, where I was like, that was kind of strange because it was like a fork in the road. And I just happened to be at that Barnes & Noble at 7:30 on a Friday night or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was strange. And that book kind of woke me up to, okay, I want to get into real estate, and I want to own rental property, and I want income producing assets. And I started focusing on that. And it was just, I didn't realize the reason I had dissatisfaction with most of my jobs is because I was working for somebody else. I didn't know is because I really want to work for myself.
The one thing I realized in doing a lot of the research that I did is that you've always been you're really addicted to learning as much as possible, so that way you're able to implement it at the highest level possible.
Right.
So your exposure into the Mike Ferry organization was at what point during your career?
Yeah, so it was interesting. When I was on the team before I started my own, it's my father and his partner that ran the team, And they were like, you should go check out Mike Ferry. And I thought, well, who's that? And they're like, well, he's kind of a hard sell. And I said, okay. And he goes, well, you're a hard sell. I'm like, I'm not a hard sell. And he's like, oh no, you're a hard sell. I'm like, I'm not a hard sell. I'm like, oh no, you are a hard sell. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to argue with you. So I went to Mike Ferry, and it was Tom Ferry that was giving the action workshop in Phoenix. And I was just blown away. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. And I just remember him saying, hey, John's going to make $550,000 this year. Turn to your neighbor and say, but is he happy? Right? And the whole audience is eating it up. They're laughing. They're talking about coaching. And I'm like, I don't have $1,000 a month. You crazy? So, but I got all the scripts. I got the book. And I realized I should be cold calling and just reaching out to expires, cancels, for sell by owners. So that's what I did. I just started calling them and just reading the script pretty much. And I did 24 sales my first year, and then just went up from there. And God, it was inspiring to me. And I got to a certain level where I just couldn't get past it. It was about 80 sales a year. And then that's why I decided to get into coaching, which is initially in 2007. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you got up to 80 deals on your own without coaching?
Yeah, just because I was just doing the script. I mean, I literally was just calling every morning, where are the expires, cancels, and for sell by owners? Where's my script? I'm going to call them, give them the script, and do the pre-qual script. And then I'm going to get their home on the MLS. And that was it. I mean, it was just the script, and realizing that was it. But I got to a certain point, and I just realized, hey, I can only go so far. I can't go to the next level if I'm not being coached or mentored by somebody who is. So that's when I decided to go down that road.
At which point, because I feel like when you start an industry like this at a young age, there's always that thought in your mind, like, is there something better out there for me? Mm-hmm. At what point in your career did you realize that there's something here that's big that you can capitalize on?
I think for me, the biggest thing was, especially being a newer agent, I didn't have to spend money. I didn't have to go out there and drop a bunch of money on like advertising and running magazines and mailers and everything else. And I thought, man, I don't have to really spend anything to pick up the phone and make a call. And so to me, when Mike was talking about, the margins are best, and I'm like, yeah, they are the best, because I'm not spending a bunch of money on stuff. So to me, it just made the most sense. I was getting results from it. So I didn't see the point in, learning from a different coach at that time that might be telling me to spend money on different things. And so I just focused on what worked. And then I realized that if I wanted to raise, it was just a matter about me getting better. And so I just focused on, role playing, practicing, with people, other agents within Mike Ferry outside of state. And before Mike, I was part of the Nightingale Cognac, we call it the Insiders Club. So this is going back a little ways. So this is before Mike, and I would, they had like an insider club. It was like $650 for like 12 or 24 CD sets. I don't remember. I think it was 12. It was like roughly $60 a set. Now you can go to, Audible and get an audiobook for under $10. But I went on there and I got hooked. I was listening to like Dennis Waitley and Brian Tracy. I've listened to so much of his stuff. Earl Nightingale and, Jim Rohn, all of them. So I got those, and then this is back in the days when, CDs were the thing, but I didn't want to carry around a bunch of CDs in my car, so I got one of the first iPods that had a big screen on the front. They had like 80 gigabyte iPods, was the biggest thing. So I found out how to rip them all down and put them into an iPod. And then I just kept subscribing to the Insider Club over and over and over again. And then I, had tons of programs, put them all on the iPod, and I just let them run in my car when I drove around. So I wouldn't even listen to the radio. I just nonstop, like Nightingale Cognac Corporation, motivation, sales, all that stuff. And that really changed my mindset. I saw the world completely different at that point.
Yeah. I believe it was Brian Tracy who said if you constantly listen to audiobooks in your car instead of listening to the radio, you can almost get a college degree equivalence of education from that in comparison, which is pretty solid.
It's true. It is so true.
Being that you've been in the business for so long, what are some of the major differences that you see with new agents today compared to when you were first starting?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if agents or people have changed. I mean, technology's changed things a little bit, but I don't know if agents have changed so much, other than maybe a lot of them, are trying to get their business from social media by posting and blogging and stuff like that. So, I mean, not that you can't get business that way. I guess you can. You have to be very targeted in how you do it. But I would say maybe the younger audience thinks that they can just network and work their social. And if they got a huge network, they possibly could. But I think it would be a lot harder for today's, let's say someone 18, 21 years of age to get into real estate. I think my biggest concern for them is that they might be, because there's so much on their social media, and whether it be Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, whatever it is, if they don't talk to people like face to face, and they're just interacting with most of their people through their smartphone, I would be concerned that they might not have the social or people skills they need to be successful in real estate. So I think that'd be the biggest challenge for somebody who's super young, like brand new into the business.
You know, it's one thing we were talking about with Lee Marcus. We had him on the podcast two weeks ago or whatever it was, and we were giving him a lot of credit for all of the stuff he's doing on social media these days, and building a brand and building a business and just getting himself out there a little bit more, and you know, being a lot more vulnerable. And we were asking him, you know, Lee, do you think you could have done that before you built this, you know, this extensive track record? And that sort of touches upon what you were saying. It's just, I think a lot of agents think that they can just get themselves out there on social media and create a little bit of some attention, and somehow that will magically turn them into some high producing listing agent. And I think it's quite the opposite. I think you really have to have a strong track record before you can even play around in that stuff.
Yeah. No, exactly. I feel like real estate sales is sales focused, marketing backed. And when you flip it inverse, you don't know how to handle the business when you actually need to have those difficult conversations. And guide somebody accordingly.
And that's the other thing too. There's like a lot of these agents that at least, you know, got their license in the last 2 years that have been listing property, or fortunate enough to list property in the, you know, during COVID. Like they really didn't have to do any negotiation, right? I mean, most of the times, if the home's worth $800,000, you list it at $800,000, you're getting offers at $850,000, right? So now it's going to be interesting to see where things go when you know, the market cools down a little bit, and you know, some of these agents that are newly licensed are actually going to have to, you know, either use some of the skills or learn to negotiate. Yeah,
that's true.
No, that's it.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, there's not.
Sorry, go ahead.
There hasn't really been much in the way of skill building in the last couple of years, like you said, for listing property, because properties would, in many cases, get offers irrespective of the agent. Now, granted, the agent had to put the deal together, but even that hasn't been as difficult as it was during the last market correction. And so,
of course,
one of the things I tell the agents that join my team, the difference between me and most other agents that you would work for on a team, most of them haven't been in the business long enough as a team to even know what it's like to go through one of those markets. And how, you know, you have to price property, you know, differently. You can't price it more than the last sale. You got to price it under the last sale. Try to explain to the seller why that's in their best interest, and why, you know, selling it for less than your neighbor is better than selling it for less than your neighbors is going to sell in 30 days. And having those conversations and getting people past that to realize that, you know, time is money, and the longer it sits on the market, the longer the offers are going to come in.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's different.
So Jason, your business has evolved. Obviously, you know, you walked us through the early years, I guess, of getting everything off the ground, and, you know, signing up for coaching got you over 100 deals. And where are you today? Like, how many people are on the team? What's the team, you know, look like? And what's the goal for this year?
That's a great question. So it's changed quite a bit recently. So last year, you know, I had about 12 people on my team. This year, it's about 15. So what changed is I turned over a lot of my service team in the last 6 months. I've hired a lot of people on my team that have a lot of experience. And so I've got a great service team now. My sales team has grown quite a bit because a lot of the agents that left last year, I hired a bunch of new agents through my sales director, who I hired just to grow the team. So his job is to grow the team, coach the team, mentor the team. I have some part in it, but he does 90% of it, because my goal is to scale out through the team and show them what I know so that they can go out and produce and kind of duplicate my efforts. So that's the goal at this point. So we're tracking for 300 transactions this year. That is our goal. But we had quite a bit of you know, upheaval between the middle of last year and the beginning of this year. And I've noticed a lot of people with the tight labor market's been happening. A lot of people have been losing, you know, staff people, you know, sales people, and there's always turnover in real estate, but it seems to be really heavy in the last 12 to 18 months for a lot of the people that I know in the business. So,
for sure.
Working a team.
So 12 people?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So right now I've got five employees. Maybe it's 6. It's 6. So it's 6.
All right.
Yeah.
So about six employees and six agents.
Yeah.
So,
We're at
Nine.
10 agents right now. We'll be at 12 next week. Yeah.
oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
the total team
Fantastic.
size is about like 18 at the moment. Yeah.
Would you say the majority of those agents on the team are, seasoned agents, been in the business, let's say more than 3 years, or some of them newer? What's the makeup?
Some of them are newer. Some of them had come from other states that had sold real estate, and have experience. Some of them have experience in similar fields but different. Like one of them has experience in timeshare sales, so
Nice.
which is just another form of real estate, just different. So, but yeah, I do have some members of my team that have been with me for 3 to 5 years that have been with me a while. Some of the more seasoned agents, but it's interesting when you're recruiting for a team, you have to look at the structure of what's going to benefit the agent. And it depends on the production of the agent, what their ambition is. So if you have an agent who does like 10 deals a year, but they want to do 50, but they don't want to run a team, they don't want to have to hire and fire and train and, service and go through all that, team building and all the stress that comes with it, then for them, our team makes sense because they can pretty much plug and play. They can come in, they got the skill, or they want their skill to be developed. They want to sell more real estate, but they don't want to be on the administration side of running things. That's great. So they can come in, they can work with our team and go out and produce and pretty much adopt our team as theirs, and they can just go out there and focus on sales. That's the ideal agent really for our team. Somebody who wants to produce more, wants to be at the highest level, but doesn't want to take on the expense or risk of building out a team.
So they can literally just come in, prospect, lead follow-up, appointments, negotiation. They have a TC who will support them.
Yep.
That sort of thing.
100%.
And
That's it.
and these agents on your team, are they working solely with buyers? Or are they also working on the sell side too?
Primarily on the buy side, but however, I have transitioned quite a few of them through my sales director to actually start working on the listing side. So so this month, the team has taken 9 listings. So that's a nice jump from where most teams where they're primarily buyer agents, which in a normal market that can make sense. In this market, it's very hard to be strictly a buyer's agent. Not that there's not enough buyers, there's just not enough property. So you can be spinning your wheels with a buyer for a long time to get a contract accepted is where getting a listing. While there's less of them when you get them, obviously they're more likely to sell. Plus building your skill sets now on how to get a listing is important while the market's easy. And then as the market changes, which it is now, you can start working with the agents on building stronger skill sets to be able to, win more deals when they're at the table with the seller.
Yeah. I want to take a little bit of a shift here. One thing that you said earlier on is, developing a strong mindset and how the mindset is one of the key things too.
Yeah.
And with you now being a leader, guiding essentially your tribe and your team forward, how do you plan on, or what are you going to use to coach or inspire them to keep a strong mindset as the market starts to shift? Because your mindset is the first thing that deteriorates in a downward market now.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of that has to do with like coaching and mentoring. Like, what are you telling the agents? How are you holding them accountable? Are they tracking their numbers? We can look at their numbers and say, hey, look, it looks like you're starting to slip here. What's the issue? Well, I had a bad deal and this deal went sideways, and they start talking about something that went bad. It's like, okay, look, you can't lose 5 deals tripping over 1. Right? So you got to continue to move forward. So a lot of it's just about coaching the agent through whatever problems that they're having in that moment, or whatever self-doubt that they're having, or whatever issue they had with a client that's messing them up psychologically for wanting to go out and do more business. Just get them back on track and say, look, you can't have one client, who is, being unreasonable, take you off your course of being successful in this business, right? So you just have to be able to focus and move on to the next. A lot of this has to do with most agents have to service everything from beginning to end with every client. They don't have a TC, they don't have a partner, if you will, that's going to handle a lot of the service side of the business. And so they are sales and they are service at the same time, and they take on all that emotional stress and turmoil. And so their timeline in the business, a lot of times they burn out too quick because they're handling all of it, and they don't have anyone to support them through that process. That's why on our team, we have everything split off in such a way that the salesperson is primarily just focusing on working with clients that are not yet under contract, whether it be a listing signed or a buyer signed. So we want to keep them focused on pursuing new clients and get the clients under contract, and then let the service team deliver the customer service to keep the client happy so they want to come back and refer friends and family. So just splitting that off so they're not getting caught up in all the, sometimes drama that comes up in escrow because the other agent's not doing their job.
Yeah.
Well, how about for you? What do you do with all the craziness going on in the world, especially with just COVID passed by, you gained like 20 pounds of muscle, lost your 10% body fat during COVID while everybody else got, what do you do to yourself, or what do you tell yourself to keep a positive mindset during hard times?
That's a great question. A lot of times for me, I guess there's multiple answers to that question. Number one, it just becomes more of a habit. So, I wasn't always in good shape. I wasn't always in good health. In 2015, I had pretty much the rockin' dad bod, and I didn't like it.
I'm rocking it now.
I didn't like it.
There's a reason this desk is this height.
Yeah. I just didn't like it. And, I got so focused. This happens a lot. There's a saying that, a person will spend the first half of their life sacrificing their health to gain wealth. And then they'll spend the second half of their life spending their wealth to get their health back. And so that's really the roller coaster that I find that most successful people are on, especially real estate, because real estate will take every moment of your day if you let it. It'll take every moment. Yeah. And then some, right? If there was 25 hours, it would take 25 hours out of your day. So you have to know where the boundary is, and then be able to block time that's not going to interfere with your business to work out and exercise. And realize that, especially in real estate, I can't speak for other industries, but I think sales in general is an energy, it's a high energy business. Mike says that it's a high energy business. And so you have to look at, are you putting things back into your life that are creating energy for you, or are you just taking energy away? And so a lot of times agents get so caught up in winning in sales and, hustle, they start to burn out, and then they start seeking other behaviors to deal with that burnout that really just sap their energy that it doesn't add back to it. So for me, it's about longevity, and it's also about, being able to age well and not, what good is you have all the money, but you're an invalid, because you didn't take care of yourself. You die early of a heart attack or stroke or something because you didn't take care of yourself. So it's also about self-confidence too. I mean, it was Vince Lombardi who said, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all." So if you have a strong body, you have a strong mind. If your body is weak, your mind will be weak, and they really are connected. So one of the best books I read was How to Be Number One by Vince Lombardi Jr. And a lot of positive quotes, a lot of inspirational things in there. You can get it on Audible. You can read the book. I've read the book and highlighted it several times, and I've listened to it. And it talks a lot about discipline. And so with every discipline comes freedom. With every lack of discipline comes slavery. So if you can start mastering the different disciplines, as Jim Rohn talks about, you can have more freedom in your life. It almost seems contradictory because discipline doesn't sound like freedom. Yeah. But it does give you freedom in that you have freedom to do other things. And when your mind is strong, your body is strong, you're more effective at everything you do. And when you're more effective, you can get better results for the time you invest. So you don't have to spend as much time as somebody else would to get the same result.
I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I was about to order the book
Jim Rohn
while you were
has come
talking.
up on every single episode of this podcast.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said I think Jim Rohn has been referenced on every single podcast.
Dude, he's had an opposite influence on a lot of people. It's interesting because, Jason, you are such an avid student of wanting to learn more, and just constantly leveling up nonstop. Is there anyone in specific who's had the biggest impact on you and your business?
That's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of friends I have within real estate within the Mike Ferry organization. I could start naming names, but I'm afraid if I did, I'd leave somebody out.
Yeah.
Why didn't you mention my name? But yeah, if you go to like a Mike Ferry conference, and if you haven't been, you should. And you go up to that first couple rows and you talk to all the agents up there. I mean, I'm a low producing agent compared to most of the agents in that front row. I mean, I did just over 200 transactions last year. It wasn't my best. But we're pushing for 300 this year, even with all the massive growth and change that we're going through. And I switched brokers, 90% of my staff, while they have a lot of experience, they have just joined my team in the last 6 to 9 months. So there's a lot of transition we're going through. But a lot of the agents up there, they're doing 4 or 5. Like you said, like Lee Marcus, he's great. Bernie Gallerini's great. You got, the Ames team is great. I mean, all these different agents that are there. Josh Barker. I think that guy holds the record, at least that I know of, for number of homes sold in a year. It's unbelievable. But we all learn from each other, and we all have these different strengths that we can pull from. And sometimes I learn from these people, and I'm thinking, well, that's amazing, but I'm not going to do it. So Uh, yeah, I mean, some of it's like, wow, that's a lot, or that's huge, or that's a big risk, or they've got a
Yeah.
structure built out. But it's nice because you can see where you want to be, and sometimes they're so far ahead. It's like I can't just. I mean, this might be my mindset limited. I'm not just going to jump from here to there because they have a completely different structure. And so you would have to build that structure first, because if not, then you might not be able to duplicate the same result. So, it's like any motivational speaker, whether it be Tony Robbins or anybody else. You say, if you find a successful system, all you have to do is really copy it.
Yeah.
It's just
No, that's a really good
put in
point.
the time and effort to copy that system, and all the responsibilities going to come with it. Because there's certain levels where you can get to a certain level in your business, and then you look at what it's going to require of you to be there and stay there, and you might be like, look, I'm just not committed to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I know Mike always preaches about the plan, right? Prospect, lead, follow up, appointments, negotiate. And I know you are very, very good at delegating. And right now you're at the point where you don't even have to negotiate contracts. So you're constantly out there just hunting for new business nonstop. And that's essentially what you're able to do for everybody on your team, just create high producing agents. Mm-hmm. And so you went from running a business where it's just getting listings to now business of producing agents who are now just as effective as you are. So where did that delegation or that skill come from? Was that something that's always been ingrained? What were the first steps that you had to take to start doing that effectively?
So I like delegating. I really do. So for me, it's almost like, necessity is a mother of invention. We've all heard that.
Yep.
And at a certain point in your career, you have to make a decision. I mean, if you're really good at what you do and you have a lot of clients, you're going to get to a point where you're too busy to handle them all. So the question is, are you going to start turning people away? Are you going to start referring them out to other people where you have no control over the results that they get? Or do you hire people onto your team and train them to do things the way you do them, so your client gets the same service that you would give yourself personally? And then bring people onto your team to deliver that service, and then make sure that they're getting the same result that they would get with you, and just overseeing that. So a lot of what we do is I'm just taking what I've learned and just training people on my team to do different parts of what I do, so that the client can have the same level of service they have with me personally, but actually get the service they deserve. Because there comes a point, for example, when you're really busy and you've got a lot of sellers and you're listing property, you also have sellers who need to buy a home because now their home's under contract. Well, you might not have the time in your schedule to drop what you're doing to go show a home real quick to see if they can put an offer in time to beat out the other 7 offers on the table. And so if you can't be there for your client's going to lose out on property, and they're not going to be your client for long. And if they are, they're not going to be a happy one. So you have to bring people onto your team to, like, this is how we make offers, this is how we negotiate, this is how we get our offer accepted. And you train agents on your team to do that, so they can go and take the client out, they can show the property, they can write the offer, and then your client can get the service they deserve. And you can continue to grow and scale at that level. But it does require you to be involved, because you're responsible for that, right? So it's just a different level of engagement with the business. You're still going to be investing time. It's just going to be less on the face-to-face with some of the clients as you're training out your team to deliver that service. So it really just depends on, if you want to continue to scale and grow and bring the people on to do that, or if you're like, nah, I don't want all that headache. I'm just going to do 50 deals a year and I'll just have an assistant. And for some people, that's fine, because they don't want all the overhead training, retention, and all the other things that come with it.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit more about the training. I know you said you now have a sales director. Is that how you refer to it?
Yeah. A sales director.
Sales director.
Yep. One sales, one operations. The sales director does the recruiting, training, accountability for the salespeople. Operations is running the service side of the business and seeing how we call them our closing partners that are handling our escrows and our listings that are on the market looking for a buyer. As a service level, at the level we want it at, or the clients getting the communication they deserve, or they get the feedback they deserve, and the updates on the market and the pricing and everything going on. So, but the operations director oversees all of it. So the sales director answers to the operations director, but the operations is at the very top, overseeing everything. But they're really focusing a lot on the service side of the business, as where the sales director is just looking for agents, training agents, and then getting agents to produce and track their numbers, so that he can hold them accountable and have weekly meetings with them to see how they're doing, how many people we talked to, how many appointments have you gone on, take contracts, why not, what's stopping you from going to the next level or hitting your goal, and dealing with all the mindset issues that can come up. And just for most people in general, it's just about, it's about habits and discipline. I'm trying to remember who told me to read the book Atomic Habits.
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah, it's a great book. My gosh, I think
Yeah.
James Clear or
it's a
Cleary.
great book. Yeah. So I just listened to that recently, and I thought, man, that'd be a great book for any agent to read. In that or The Compound Effect, that's another big one.
Yeah.
Right.
It's all those little small actions that compound over time that make you successful. It's not just, oh, I got in real estate and that was an overnight success in a year.
Right.
Not likely.
So this sales director, and this is actually something we were talking about with Josh Barker as well, his sales manager.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that role. Are they actively recruiting all the time? Are they always looking for new agents? And what kind of person they are? Are they also selling? What's their prior experience? Were they always in real estate?
Yes. So I would say yes to most of that.
That was like 4 questions in one, but
prior real estate experience, absolutely. Prior sales experience, absolutely. Prior sales management and director experience in building sales teams, yes. Working in sales themselves, like out working with buyers and sellers of real estate, no.
Right.
Because their time is really consumed with recruiting for new agents and then training agents and then holding agents accountable to doing what they said they were going to do in their goals. That is more than a full-time job. So there's really no time for them to be in personal production. But if you think if you're going to try to build a team without that key player, I don't know how you would do it without it pulling you out of personal production.
Yeah.
That's exactly
I'm wondering
what John
the
was
same
asking
thing right
that.
now.
It's been a long journey. We've been looking for someone for 6 months for that role.
I feel like we've shifted our focus a couple times, but I mean, I feel like I have about 50% of the responsibilities you just listed, and still trying to list property, and I got one foot out the door, and it's been interesting.
Yeah.
Well, like Jason said, right now it's a shortage of laborers. So how do you identify someone who's a keeper and someone who's just going to turn over? Because that's like something that's a struggle for a lot of people today.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it, you have to look at the person you're interviewing. I mean, just for the sales manager, sales director, position, what's their experience? Are you hiring someone who is good at real estate? Okay, well, if they're good, why are they leaving? Right. And if they're in management, why are they in management? Right. What got them there? How long have they been doing it? Like, what other industries have they been in? So, we were blessed to find someone who had, over 20 years of sales experience, had, worked for new build construction companies, had sales call center teams. And I think, if I remember correctly, even did timeshare sales for a while and had a history of sales. It was just sales management, and building sales teams and running sales teams. And so it's like when you have someone who's been in sales and, they're north of 50 years of age and they have a lot of experience in that industry and just in sales in general and running a sales team and what it means to be in sales and the mindset of sales, keeping you focused on your goals and holding you accountable and encouraging you and telling you you're doing a good job and, telling you to get back out there and do it again. I mean, having that person, that's just a different skill set. So when you find someone who's already done it, maybe not even in real estate, but in similar sales professions. That being said, I would strongly encourage you, if you're going to get someone to run that job, that they have a real estate license, whether it be local or out of state, and have experience in selling real estate. I think a big mistake, and I could be wrong, but I think a big mistake would be if you hired somebody who maybe had a great sales background but didn't have some real estate experience. Because you would have to really coach that sales, director on what real estate is and why it works, and escrow, and all the objections that come in a real estate transaction, and why deals fall apart. I mean, there's so many hangups that come up on both sides of the transaction. It would take you a long time to really convey, and then that person has to be able to coach and train your salespeople to believe in them.
Exactly. And then you have to convince the salespeople, hey, this guy who doesn't really know real estate that well is going to be managing you guys, and have at it.
Right.
So the person you ended up hiring, is that someone that came through your network? Was it through like one of these job sites?
Yeah.
And because let me answer. Let's answer that one first.
So I would say we've had a lot of success using WiseHire and finding agents and filling different roles within the team. So WiseHire will allow you to run specific ads for specific jobs. and
Yeah.
you can pay to boost it and get out on all the job boards. So that's where we found a lot of the people on our team, a lot.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're using that because of you.
Yeah.
But I didn't know about this boost function. I feel like we're sitting there
Like
on
sitting in behind. No.
Sometimes I feel like our ads may not be posted, but see, it's, that role is really tough because it's got to be somebody who's got the really strong skills. They know what they're talking about. They know what they need to do. They're accountable, but they don't really want to use them, right? Or they don't want to use them and be out there boots on the ground every single day. So maybe it's somebody who's a little bit older that says, "Hey, I've got kids and a family now, and I want to, be able to go home at 5 o'clock." And
Yeah,
Well, Jason, for you,
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think a lot of times, you get to a certain part in your career, so you're really good. Let's say, for example, you're really good at sales, and you've been doing it forever, and then you're like, I like encouraging people, coaching people, training people. I like pushing people to the next level, and you like that role, and that's what you want to do, and you get satisfaction of watching other people grow and develop and become successful. Like that's what lights you up. That's what makes you happy, right? And then you incentivize the person who's running that role, so they get a cut of all the action. So they have the most incentive to get as many agents to produce as many deals as possible because they're getting a slice of everything. So
sure.
I would think whoever you bring into that position, there shouldn't be a ceiling on what they can make, so they have the highest desire possible to bring in as many agents and the highest production possible to help you grow that scale and scale that thing out. I think where people can make a big mistake is they hire a recruiter or trainer, they'll pay him a salary and then they'll pay him like a bonus for like signing an agent, or pay him a bonus on the first 3 deals and then it stops. Well, if you incentivize someone that way, they're incentivized to hire agents and to get them in the door and have them do a few deals, but there's no incentive for them to stay around. Their compensation is based on just recruiting. Now you want compensation based on recruiting, retention, and production. And if they're getting a cut of every deal, then there's an incentive for them to hire, train, and not just hire people. They want to train them to be good because they have a financial incentive on that agent doing well, right?
Train them and retain them.
100%, 100%. Because retention is always the number one thing with agents.
Yeah. And for you, Jason, since you're getting almost like a third perspective because you're not interviewing them or getting them in there, what are some of the common traits that you're seeing from afar that make some of the agents successful versus the others?
I'd say the ones that are the most successful are the ones that are coachable, number one. And number two, they're not afraid of the phone.
Yeah.
So, the agents that are going to pick up the phone, make the calls, and, do the follow-up. I mean, really, that's what it is. Like an obsessive compulsive disorder, like focus on the phones. So, the best quote I ever heard was that real estate's a contact sport.
Yep.
It is. So,
would you say you instilled like the Mike Ferry schedule in your agents? Like, are they expected to be, because I know you work from home, right?
I do a lot of my work from home. Yeah. I do a lot of work from my home, and then I go out on appointments in the afternoons. I go in the office, for a sales meeting once a week and a leadership meeting once a week. But I do a lot of stuff virtually, through calls, Zoom.
But is the team expected to be in an office, Monday through Friday, on the phone in the mornings, appointments in the afternoon, that sort of schedule?
Well, it's interesting. So I don't set those expectations per se. I leave that to my director. But they're all independent contractors, so we can't tell them to do anything. We do have a coaching agreement with them on what we can coach and hold them accountable to. So a lot of when they first come on board, a lot of what they do is they're coming in the office or they're going through like a 30-day sales training program. But a lot of it's Mike Ferry. And then they're learning our systems and our structures and what we do and how we do it and how our team works and who's responsible for what technology we're using in the background to run everything. And then we have a call center in our office where it's like a Mike Ferry prospecting school, standing cubicles, music going, and they're in there calling and dialing. So there's a lot of energy they get in that environment that they won't get if they call from home. Most agents are not disciplined enough. I'm not saying my team. I'm just saying agents in general are not disciplined enough to work from home. Generally, it's a struggle for many. I mean, to be high production. Most agents do work from home, but they're not high production agents, right? So
It's true.
It just depends on the person. I mean, my personal sales production went up when I started working from my home office, just because I wasn't getting pulled 15 different directions when I'm in the office. So
Yeah.
my role is different in that if I'm there, they might want to ask me a question or, hey, what do you think about this? Or, hey, can I talk to you about something real quick? And so I can get distracted and then I'm not in production. So I'm not at the level yet where I can step away from production and just focus on, all the other stuff that's going on. I do, but I do it in time blocks. I can't just show up at the office and say, okay, I'm going to spend the next 8 hours working with my team on different issues. I'm not at that level yet. I do on some level, but what I'm doing is I'm working through my leadership team. Here's what we need to do. Here's what needs to be focused on. Here are some issues we need to address. And then they're going and implementing it. And then I'm following up with them the following week. Okay, where are we at with these things? And I'm working through them at this time. Long term, I'd like to get more involved with the team and coaching and mentoring agents to a higher level. But at this point, at this stage, it's really about getting enough agents to do enough deals to kind of pull the financial pressure off of me from production, so that I can invest more. And to them,
when do you see that happening?
What's that?
When do you see that happening? When will at what point will the team grow enough where you're able to step out of the production side?
That's a great question. So, there's two different ways of looking at a team. I want 12 agents doing 25 deals. Well, if you can get 12 agents to do 25 deals, man, you're a killer, right? You're a rock star. It might be more practical to get 25 agents to do 12 deals.
Yep.
So changing that mindset shift, because I've gone through this, and a lot of my friends have gone through this. When you're in high production like you guys are, right? You think that all the agents below you should be producing at your level, or maybe half your level, or a third of your level, at least a quarter. Come on, at least 10%, right? And you start thinking, I just need 10 agents to replace my production. Maybe you might need 15. Well, that's ridiculous. 10 should be able to do it, right? Well, maybe if you can invest the time and energy into them to get them at that level. But in most cases, most agents don't have that time or luxury. Or if they make that time and luxury, their production goes down, and now they're making less money, and now there's financial problems. Right? So there comes a point where it's like, okay, if you have a director, you train them on how to train the agents, they're coaching and training them, and you're still like doing 1 or 2 trainings a week for like maybe half an hour, right? But you're not in it 8 hours, 10 hours a day, constantly monitoring, coaching, following up, and going through all that. No, you got someone who's doing that for you. You can interject and help keep moving the team forward in many different ways. You just can't give it a full 8-hour day. But if you can get up to like 20, 25 agents that are doing about a dozen deals a year, that should, in most cases, depending on what your cost structure is, get you to the point where you're profitable, where you don't need to be in production per se. But you can then start saying, okay, look, we got 15 agents doing a dozen deals. We're doing okay. We got to get to 24 agents doing 12. Now we're profitable. Now we can start building on. Let's get them up to 24 deals each, and we can focus on these different avenues to get them there. At the same time, recruiting, because Steve Powers said this. A couple of things he said to me, they're so powerful. A third of the agents are going to stay with you every year. A third of the agents are coming on, and a third of the agents are going to leave. And he would always start every coaching call, Jason, when they leave you, and they will. So not all of them. I mean, not all of them have left. I mean, we have had turnover over time, but a lot of it depends on the culture you build and what you provide to them and what services you provide. So we've been really focusing a lot on providing so much for the agents. It's very hard for them to leave because it doesn't even make financial sense to leave. And the cost of building a team, especially in this high inflationary market, very difficult to do, extremely difficult. Assuming you could do it and stay in production at the same time. So most of the agents find that it just makes financial sense to be on a team that's going to support them, where all they have to do is focus on production, where if they're not making enough money, it has nothing to do with us and the splits. It has everything to do with what they're doing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, think of this. How many teams do you know the team leader has a profit margin over 50%?
It's very
Rare.
I mean, I don't know if I've met any yet. With a margin over 50%? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't checked with any of my friends lately, but I mean, over 50? I don't think so. So when an agent's on a 50-50 split, I'm not going to talk splits here, but if an agent was on a 50-50 split and they started their own team, they would have all that expense of, running a team. It'd be very difficult for them to have more than a 50-50 margin. And let's just say they're really good in lean. I mean, I had a margin over 50%, was just 2 assistants, like 60, 65%.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got an extra 10 or 15%. What if I was on a team on a 50-50? I probably could have sold more homes because I didn't have to worry about the staff side of things or deal with it.
Yep.
Right? I could just be in production. So, I mean, an agent who really wants to just focus on making money, they should really think about joining a team where the whole structure is built in. You just got to get in there and just hit the phones and make the calls. And if you're going to get on a 50-50 and you don't have any of the expense, I think it'd be crazy to pass that up. Heck, if I had,
But I think happens.
if I had that deal, I told my team, if I had that deal, I wouldn't be doing this.
You can see
But
that
I think what
excites-
happens is they may leave for a higher split. Let's just say they go from 50 to 70, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to get 75 across the street.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, if a team leader is able to give them 75 and they go to another team, not start their own team, but just go to another team, that team leader is obviously not running a profitable business. So then you have to start asking yourself, well, what are they providing them, right? So it's usually just something that's a shiny penny that is an initial attraction that I think after time they'll realize that they don't have the value that.
Yeah, it's across the board. And one thing I just wanted to say is that Jason lit up as soon as you were talking like business sense and building the business, because building up people to actually do that is what drives Jason. As you can see, one thing that's hard when it came to mind for me is taking off that salesperson hat and putting on the entrepreneur hat, and like constantly switching back and forth. Mm-hmm. How do you not get the lines intertwined and twisted? Because they're both completely separate, as we've learned.
Yeah, they are separate. They are separate. And I think the longer you're in the sales mindset, the harder it is to shift in many ways into the entrepreneur mindset.
Yeah,
because,
1,000%.
Yeah, because the business, in most cases, at least in my case, most of the business is built on the production of the leader. Yep. And so the leader is the one who's funding the production and funding the organization until it grows beyond that leader. And until that point, that leader can lead and have the entrepreneurial hat on to a degree to help scale it off of them. But if they lose focus on being in production and that suffers too much, then you've got all kinds of other problems. And if you start having financial problems because you're not producing enough to be profitable, then everything else kind of goes sideways. And now you've got a mindset problem, right? A real big mindset problem. So I think what is compartmentalizing. When am I going to focus on leadership? When am I going to focus on the entrepreneurial side of things? What meetings am I going to have? When am I going to focus on growing and scaling? And then the majority of the time, until that grows and scales with the efforts of others, being coached and guided by you, you have to continue to do the production until that thing scales out.
Yeah.
So
would you say that your mornings are still focused on, prospecting, lead generation, and the afternoon is a little bit more, in the operator position? Or is it, do you usually like set aside Fridays, or how do you do that?
It's a great question. Primarily it's a lot of the entrepreneurial things will come through. Like if I have a slow spot on Friday, I'll call my operations director. We'll have a conversation about something. Or if an issue's pressing, I'll look at my schedule and go, okay, I don't have any appointments this afternoon. I want to have a meeting about something. I'm gonna do a 30-minute Zoom call. And a lot of times, especially if I'm training or showing them something or bringing up an issue, I'll record it. So there's a video they can go back and reference to remember. Yeah. So if I do a training, I try to do a training with my team in either a Zoom format and then or like a bomb and record it. So that way it's there and it can be used for future reference. Because I want to keep recreating things every time someone new is joining the team.
Jason, you have kids, right?
I do.
So let's say you had to double your business for the remainder of the calendar year and your kid's life depended on it. How would you do that? What action steps would you take?
That is that's the best question ever. That's the best question ever. There's a gun to your feet.
I'm sorry it led up that way. I didn't mean to take it there.
I think that was two questions you blended into one, but
no, that's actually.
I like that, Chase. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was commending.
No,
giving Kiros some props.
Yeah. So to double your business and your kid's life depended on it.
Yep. What action steps would you take?
That's a great question. I don't know if it'd be anything different than I'm doing now, other than to double it in the next 6 months.
Well, you have 8 months. Well, 6 months to actually produce it, and you have a couple months to pen and close it.
I think at that point, if you know where you're, for me to double it, I would have no choice but to recruit myself. I would have to get on the recruiting side with the sales
Mm-hmm.
director, and we both have to recruit like crazy. And I would have to get heavily involved in pushing the agents to a higher level of production very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean,
What's stopping you from doing that now?
And what's stopping me from doing it right now?
Yeah.
It's a great question. I think the number one thing that would stop me from doing it is when you've done something long enough and you got results from it, to walk away from that, to go for something that you don't have a long track record of doing. It's a big financial risk. But sometimes when your back's against the wall like that, you don't have a choice. And so I think how most people are, I'm very much this way. It's not until someone gets shoved, right, that they do something.
Yep.
So before I got into real estate, I was working for a trust company after I worked for T. Rowe Price, and it was funny. My wife's like, if you're going to get into real estate, you better do it soon, because she was pregnant. We just bought a triplex. We lived in one unit, and the other 2 units were rented out. And she's like, if you're going to do this real estate thing, you better do it soon, because I'm about to have a child, and then you're going to have to have a steady 9-to-5 job, which I already had. And I said, okay. And I said, well, I'll pray to God and see if it's His will that I get into real estate. Well, 2 weeks later, I got laid off.
Beautiful.
So I'm like, well, there's your sign, right? And if I hadn't been pushed into it, I don't know if I ever would have just left. And so a lot of people, especially they've been employees for a long time, they have a steady paycheck. It's hard to walk away from that paycheck to go for something unknown.
Yeah. We get addicted to the way we earn money. That's for sure.
And I think you touched upon something that I'm struggling with too. It's just like, we've been trained for so long. Like, I still feel bad if I'm not prospecting every single morning for 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
I walk around with guilt, and I feel this weight on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And sometimes you even go outside. Like if I have in a rare instance, we have a meeting at 10 a.m. in the morning or something. I'm like, what is it like out here? this light, there's light during the morning, and it's just a weird, strange feeling. But it's like you were saying, to give up something that you've been working on and getting better at each year, and taking listings and going from 25 to 50 and 75 to all of a sudden saying, I'm gonna get back out there on the recruiting game. It's hard to just switch it up.
Yeah. So there's 2 different levels of stress, right? So you've got the stress of knowing what you need to do and doing it, and the stress of making something perform you haven't done before. And so I think, in many ways, your natural default would be, I'll just work twice as hard to produce twice as much to get to the goal, because I know what I can do, I know what I'm capable of, and I know what I'm going to have to do, because I know my numbers. I'm just going to have to make more calls, talk to more people, and go out and get more business. But then you're like, you know what? I'm already working X amount of hours. Even if I spent this much time on the phones, I'm not sure I could double in a year from what I'm currently doing. If you're doing 25 deals and your kid's life depended on to do 50, you can do that. If you're pulling in 150 listings a year and you need to pull in 300, that's a whole different ball game, right?
Yeah.
So it would require a lot of effort. And I don't think, other than the only person I know of that I think took 300 listings or close to it personally, was Josh Barker. I don't know anybody else who's done it. So you would have to scale fairly quickly to get to that level. And so I don't think physically, except for there's always the outlier like a Michael Phelps or a Josh Barker, right? So you have those outliers that can do it. For the other people in the Olympics, they're not Michael Phelps, right? They're good, but they're not Michael Phelps. So you're at that level where you're like, I don't think I'm going to double in a year. So I would have to scale through people. And so now the challenge comes: how do I find these agents to double the production? I said, you want to know the cheater way of doing it? I'll give you a cheater way of doing it.
Please tell us.
Cheater way of doing it: you just find the agents that you compete with that are doing maybe 30, 40 deals a year, that aren't doing 100 plus, and you cut them a great deal to come over. Say, you don't need your team, you can use mine. Come on over, here's your split. You just brought on 40 deals, and you go out and hit like 4 or 5 different agents like that, and get them and say, what are you paying? What's your margin? I can give you a better margin over here. Why don't you come over? Just leave. As you bring on that production, you might need to bring up 1 or 2 more admins. So who's your favorite person out of your 3 employees? That one, bring that one with you. Come on over here. Here's the split. You'll have a better margin than you are running this team. Come on over here. You can kind of co-opt teams. So if you start co-opting teams, sort of like big corporations, swallow up, like big banks buy small banks.
Yep.
You could do that. You could double your production pretty quick. I don't know if you double your revenue, or your margin. I don't know if you double your actual net operating income, but you could definitely scale your income pretty quick.
Yeah.
Assuming you can convince them to come over. The only downside to that approach is you'd have to have an attorney, and I have a non-compete clause and all that stuff, and non-solicitation, all that in my agreements. But you'd have to have an attorney look really close at that, because you'd want to have something in that contract where they couldn't just join your team for 60, 90 days to leave.
Yeah.
See, that's the downside to running that kind of a risk, is you're bringing someone in who's a direct competitor to learn how you do things. And if you're doing it at a much higher level than they are, what's stopping them from just learning what you do and then deciding to go out and do it themselves when they're already doing it at some level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you were talking about your wife being pregnant and essentially for the push. I want to hear the rest of that story. Because you were saying that's the push that you needed when she told you that she was pregnant, when you have to do it.
Yeah, man, that was pretty stressful. So yeah, she was pregnant. We just bought the triplex. Luckily, it was a triplex, so we only had to pay 1/3 the mortgage, or actually not even that. I remember we bought the place for $182,800, so just under $200,000. FHA 3% down. I think my mortgage payment, I'll never forget it. It was $1,350 a month, 91 cents. And I think after we collected rent for the 2 doors,
do you think he's analytical?
Yeah, just a little bit. And I think we only were responsible after we collected rent on the other 2 doors. We only paid $250 a month.
Wow.
So I didn't have a lot of overhead there. We had 1 car payment. And so it was the best time to do it because I didn't have a lot of, financial responsibilities at that point. But it was scary. And I went from a paycheck to 100% commission. But I remember in Rich Dad Poor Dad, the one thing that was said that really caught my interest was when Robert Kiyosaki said, you think it's risky to be in being self-employed. Let's say you're in commission sales, and you have 10 or 12 commissions coming in, 2 or 3 don't work out. You still got 7, 8, 9 deals coming in. You still have money coming in. He said, we work for an employer. Either you're getting paid or you're not. Either you're 100% income or no income. There's no in between.
Yep.
And he goes, so which one's really taking more risk?
Yeah. One stream or multiple streams?
Yeah, one stream or multiple streams. I'm like, well, shoot, I never thought of it that way. So that was a light bulb for me. And then talking about, how, you're limited how much money you can make. And I never liked that about corporations, being limited by what I could make. And I also realized I wanted to have a life for my wife to stay home with the kids because we were both working at the time. And I couldn't do that, being employed, at least not in the career path I was on. So it was making that jump. And then I told my wife, I said, look, I can go into real estate sales full time. You can stay home with the kids, but I'm going to tell you, it's not a 9-to-5 job. And so sometimes it's going to take evenings and weekends. And she said, well, you do what you got to do so I can stay home with my babies. And then I thought, you just made a deal with the devil. So once I had free reign to just, work as hard as you need to work so I can stay home with the kids. So then it became, okay, I'll be home for dinners. And most nights, and even now, I'm home with the kids for dinner 5-6 nights a week. I don't have a lot of evening appointments. Most of them are during the day.
That's awesome. So
we would always have dinner together. So that we never really sacrificed that. But I work more than 40-hour weeks. I work, on a slow week 50, on an average week 60, on a busy week 70. So I'm working, a lot of hours. But my wife is going to stay home, raise the kids, and we've had a lot of freedom in our life we wouldn't have had if I had stayed in a corporate setting. So it worked really well. I think the biggest challenge most agents have if they're married is if their spouse is on the same page with them. So if an agent's going to be really successful at a high level, they really have to have a supportive spouse that sees the bigger vision and why they're doing it, why they're working all the time, why are they taking calls at 7:30 at night. Why they always seem to be working, they're always checking their phone, they're always distracted. But what's the goal? Why is one of the partners in this deal? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it for the money? Is that the only reason, or are there other reasons behind it? So the spouse has to be on the same page as what the end goal is, why you're doing it, what's the reward to them for you being in the industry, what's the reward to the kids, for being in the industry, for having to suffer through it. The old joke is, why do realtors not wear name tags?
Why is that?
When they get home, their kids know their name. Right? So.
This is so true, you got good timing here, Jason. Kiro's getting married in the next couple months.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, Kiro. If you're gonna do it, you have to have the same goal, right? The same goal, the same vision. What's the reward? Because if you get the kids and the family in on the rewards of hitting certain milestones, They're rooting for
Yep.
you. They're asking how things are going. It's also accountability. Hey, Dad, did you get the listing?
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if you don't, you feel like, oh, you get the listing, right? So you don't want to go home to your kids and say no. So it's a form of accountability when your family's in on it. And maybe for some people, they don't want that accountability. That's why their family isn't on it.
Yeah.
Because their wives are like,
Yeah.
what did you do today? How many people did you talk to? Did you get any contracts? you know? And,
Right now, you just have to be accountable to me.
Yeah. Right.
You come back to the office. I'm like, did you get it? Where is it?
It's about communicating it. You know, ultimately, you having a business plan with your spouse or your family, just having support across the board is like, I think, the biggest thing, you know, that comes into someone's success. Because if they're not doing it for the greater good of everybody else, what are they doing it for? Like you said, Jason. So that's like the cornerstone to everything.
Yeah.
So it's like faith, family. If you don't have those set, everything else falls around it.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. You can have things come up in your life, and this is, you know, and Kiro, you don't have any kids yet, right?
No, thank God, no. Not that I know of.
All right. So if you think about it, you know, there are certain things that you don't know that are coming in life, right? We don't know. We just have to play the cards we're dealt with on a daily basis. But there are things that come up in life that you don't expect. And I'm not getting any personal details on this recording, but there are some things that can come up in your life that you don't expect. I'm not talking about divorce. I mean, you know, that's common. I'm not saying I'm doing it. It's common. That's the most expensive thing you can do, pretty much. But there are things that come up in your life, especially when you have children, that you don't expect. Everyone plans, oh, I'm going to send my kid to college. I'm going to have to spend this. I'm going to do that. And you start to think about financially what it's going to cost. But there are things that come up that you don't expect. And it's nice to have the financial means to address those issues in the right way and not look at your kid and go, there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not, you know, what I'm talking about is there are options that you can provide your kids. There's options you can provide them, opportunities you can give them that other people can't give because of financial reasons. So for me, it's just, you know, being able to do that really is, you know, if that's not enough of a goal to push you to do more than you think you're capable of, just because you want to have the financial resources to deal with things that are unexpected and not to go into massive debt or bankruptcy because of it. You know, those, you know, having those options, I would think that alone should push someone to push hard to be number one. But, you know, some people, I don't know, that's not it. Some people rather, you know, there's big goals that they have, which is good, but you know, you can never have what they say. No one ever wakes up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat because they got too much money in the bank.
Yeah.
That's true.
I don't know who said this. I don't know why it came up in my mind. It could be completely off topic. It was actually Brad Lee in one of the events that we were in last week for an EXP event. And he goes and says, you know, people say, you know, I want to make $10 million. I want to make a couple $1 million. But would you trade that for your life? Because would you trade that to wake up tomorrow? Because when you wake up in the morning, people don't wake up so excited, but they wouldn't trade that for $10 million. So it's like a lot of little switches and mindset shifts. But, you know, becoming the kind of person that is a top producer, is, you know, on the top end of it, that person, and teaching that to your kids, that mindset, I think, is by far the most valuable thing that you could ever pass down to family, to add on to what you were saying, which is great.
So my phone just rebooted.
Awesome.
My Yealink phone, or through Uma, just rebooted. So hopefully that doesn't mean our internet's about to go down, but just a heads up. Might just be a program.
You're good,
we
man.
Definitely ran over on time, but
listen, this has been an awesome episode. We really do appreciate you spending some time with us today. If anybody watching this wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
So my cell phone number is 602-738-9943. 602-738-9943. Or my email is jason@thepenroseteam.com. jason@thepenroseteam.com. You can Google my name. If you forget all that, you'll find it.
Awesome,
Jason.
Well, thank you again. We really appreciate you spending some time with us today. I think people will certainly get a lot of value from this.
Yeah.